Hey, how's it going, fight fans? Welcome to mindforcombat. If you're new to the channel, my name's Rohan, and this is my platform where I do fight sports related content. So if you're new here, why don't you help me grow my platform? Now, all you have to do is subscribe to the channel, like the video if you like it, maybe hit that bell icon so you get notified every time I upload a video. And as I say in these videos, look, it's not going to cost you nothing, but it's going to help me hit personal goals that I've set myself and really mean a lot to me. I'm hoping to hit 2K by the end of the year, but I need your support to be able to do it. So guys, please subscribe to the channel, help me, share it out with your friends and families. If you're long-term subscribers, maybe you've got some friends that you talk to MMA about that don't know about my channel yet, I would love for you to share it. Anyways, without further ado, this is a really exciting fight for me, and in the wake of Khabib Nurmagomedov's retirement, there's been a lot of speculation about what's going to happen with the lightweight title. And a lot of people are talking about the Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier fight as being a potential fight for the vacated lightweight title. Now, of course, Michael Chandler's in the mix, Justin Gaethje's in the mix, Tony Ferguson's in the mix, and there's a lot of guys that are popping out. Charles "The Bronx" Oliveira, who I think is an incredible talent, has been overlooked in a lot of ways, is in the mix. But one of the guys who isn't being spoken about, and understandably so because he's unproven, is Islam Makhachev. Now, Islam Makhachev is a good friend of Khabib Nurmagomedov. They're training partners, they've trained together their whole life, and I've always really rated Islam Makhachev. Now, he's got that loss where he got KO'd. I think I forget what the Adriano Martins or something like that, but he got knocked out by him when he got caught by a punch. Outside of that, he's been exceptional. Now, this is a guy who's shown us he's got great grappling. Of course, he trains with Khabib and AKA and all of that lot, so he's got really strong grappling. He's shown us that he's really talented, and this is a guy who's got actually pretty good stand-up fundamentals as well. Now, he's unproven. He hasn't really beaten any huge names in the lightweight division, and that's probably the thing that impacts him most. But he gets an opportunity when he takes on the former lightweight world champion and former welterweight interim title contender in Rafael Dos Anjos. Rafael Dos Anjos is older in the game now, but he's been around for so long, been in the UFC for so long. He's achieved so much that this is really a huge opportunity for Makhachev, and a win over Rafael Dos Anjos, who no one outside of the elites have really beaten, will tell me a lot about where Islam Makhachev is. So without further ado, let's get into this fight and let's break this one down. Makhachev is still a young man in the prime of his physical prime and in the prime of his career at 29 years old, and he fights Rafael Dos Anjos, who's 36 years old. Now, 7 years difference is quite significant, particularly when you consider how long Dos Anjos has been around, the wear and tear on his body, and the fact that he is in a bit of a slump lately, 1-4. Is that indicative of a fighter that's on the decline, and he's coming back down to lightweight at 36 years old, a weight cut that he said previously had made him faint? You've got to question what's going on here and what's the case and why did he make that jump down. I mean, he's obviously found a lot of issues at 170. He had a lot of success early, but then he stumbled across some problems. So you got to question what his motives are for coming back down. So let's watch that. Makhachev comes into this fight with a professional record of 18 wins and 1 loss, and he fights Dos Anjos, who's 29 wins and 13 losses. Dos Anjos is vastly more experienced than Makhachev, but Makhachev is no joke. He's an experienced fighter himself, had nearly 20 professional fights. On a 6-fight win streak in the UFC. I believe he's like 7-1, 8-1 in the UFC. So this is a guy who deserves some attention and some respect. So I don't think experience is going to be a big factor. Now, despite the fact that Dos Anjos is actually coming back down in weight class, Makhachev is going to be slightly taller, standing at 5'10". Dos Anjos stands at 5'8", and he'll actually have a half-inch reach advantage with a 70.5-inch reach as opposed to Dos Anjos' 70-inch reach. To describe their styles, obviously Makhachev fights kind of similarly to Khabib. He likes to rely on his wrestling. He's got very good wrestling, very good top control, and he's very dangerous. On the feet, he is vastly improved since his knockout loss, and I think that's probably thanks to his knockout loss. Sometimes the only thing a fighter needs is to lose so they can learn a lesson, and this is a very exciting time for Makhachev. To describe Dos Anjos' style, he's obviously got great everything. He's got great BJJ, great wrestling, great striking, but he shines when he's able to put his opponents back against the cage and utilize his pressure. Think about what he's done to Pettis, think about what he's done to Robbie Lawler in 2 different weight classes. When he's able to let himself go and not be overwhelmed by wrestling pressure and size, he does really well. So that's really a kind of a key for victory for Dos Anjos. Some of their key wins now. Makhachev does not really a huge amount of key wins to jump out. He's obviously beaten Gleison Tibau, a respected long-time veteran in the UFC, who he actually knocked out. And then, of course, he's beaten Nick Lentz, who's another long-time respected veteran of the UFC. Dos Anjos has a much more lengthy and respected resume. When you think about how long he's been around for, of course that makes sense that he would, but he's beaten the likes of Anthony Pettis to win the lightweight world title, former welterweight world champion Robbie Lawler when he was coming off a win, just one fight removed from losing his belt, so I think that win meant a lot more then. Of course, he's beaten the likes of Kevin Lee. Kevin Lee is a good win to have at any point in your career. He's beaten Cowboy Cerrone not once but twice. He's beaten Benson Henderson. He's beaten Nate Diaz, some of the best lightweights of all time there. So this is a guy who's very, very respected. And when you look at all the people that he's fought, even the guys that he's lost to, he's been there with Khabib Nurmagomedov, Colby Covington, Kamaru Usman, Leon Edwards, everyone, Tony Ferguson. He's fought everyone who's everyone in these two weight classes. That should be remembered. The biggest issue for Makhachev is going to be A, that he's inexperienced at the top of the game, and B, that he's not very active. He has consistent layoffs. Now, I kind of understand the most recent one with COVID and everything else going on in the world, but you should consider the fact that he only fights once, twice a year, even in the best years. That's got to be a problem for a guy with his talent. Of course, he's 29, but he ain't getting any younger. You got to get moving. The biggest issue for Rafael Dos Anjos is going to be the age and the wear and tear that he's taken on his body, and making the weight cut again for the first time in all these years at 36 years old. How's that going to impact him? The X factor for Makhachev is going to be his youth, hunger and motivation, and the X factor for Dos Anjos is going to be his experience. With that said, let's get into the prediction. Now, this is a very, very fun fight, and I think one of the key things coming into this fight that makes me make my decision is the fact that Rafael Dos Anjos is 1-4 in his last 5 fights. That's showing me signs of a fighter that is slowing down and starting to be figured out now. He's got 13 losses on his career. He's had 41 fights. He's 36 years old, and he hasn't made the weight cut down to 155 since, I believe, 2015 when he fought Tony Ferguson. So it's been a long time since he's made this cut. He's not a young man, and he used to struggle to make the cut when he was a young man. So how's that going to impact him? I think we're going to see Makhachev employ a game plan very similar to that his friend Khabib Nurmagomedov employed against Rafael Dos Anjos. And I think he's going to have a lot more success on the feet, because I think he's a slightly better striker than Khabib Nurmagomedov. And of course, Khabib's stand-up is obviously historically underrated, but I think Makhachev's a really good striker. He's just unproven at this point. I think Makhachev's going to be able to survive on the feet, and Dos Anjos won't be able to do any significant damage. And I think Makhachev has a good chin despite the fact that he was KO'd, and I think he's going to be able to put Dos Anjos against the cage, which is where Dos Anjos seems to struggle. Once his back's on the cage, he just doesn't seem to be able to get off, and I think from his back's on the cage, we're going to see Makhachev be able to shoot him for takedowns and get takedowns and really cause a lot of trouble to Dos Anjos. I think Dos Anjos is very well prepared to be able to defend takedowns, and he'll probably defend 1-2, have a lot of success early in the fight. But I think as the fight goes on and he starts to slow down from the weight cut which would have worn on him, and as he starts to struggle with the pace and starts to find himself in familiar places where he just seems to lose regularly, particularly when you think of his most recent fights, I think we're going to see Makhachev just start to put it on him, get takedowns and do a lot of damage. Fight fans, I'm thinking that Makhachev is actually going to, survive some early struggles, start to take over the fight and dominate the fight in the tail end. I'm not sure if this is going to be a finish for Makhachev, but I think he's going to dominate to get the decision. I'm going with Makhachev for the win. So fight fans, my official prediction is Makhachev for the win. No disrespect to Dos Anjos, but I think his best days are behind him now, and there's no shame in that, in being an older fighter. I think he should consider, fighting lower down in the rankings. That's kind of what he's doing now if you consider the fights that he's coming off. But still, very, very exciting times, very exciting fight, and a good opportunity and good test for Makhachev. Good test for Dos Anjos to show the world, look, I'm not done. Rohan is wrong. Don't know what he's talking about in his little below 2K channel. But anyways, guys, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Remember to comment below, let me know how you see this fight, guys. Let me know if you enjoyed this breakdown. If you're new here, like, subscribe, share, all that jazz. There may be a preview at the end of this video of another video I've done, so stick around, check that out. If you ain't seen the full video, then remember to check out the full video and help me boost up them views. Anyways, guys, thank you for watching. I'm Rohan, and as always, this is mindforcombat. So when you're looking at Weili Zhang and just who are her biggest threats, I suppose the obvious one is going to be her most recent opponent, which is Joanna Jędrzejczyk, or Joanna Jędrzejczyk, however you pronounce her name. Joanna and Weili Zhang had what was probably the greatest women's fight of all time, and in my opinion, probably one of the greatest fights of all time, regardless of genders. They put on an absolute showcase and a war. It was back and forth, bloody, gruesome. Joanna left with some scars to show for it. Her face was completely rearranged and it was absolutely incredible. One of the best fights I've ever seen. What I saw in that fight was that Joanna had tons and tons of skills to be able to win this fight, and if she was to come back into the rematch with a new game plan, she could most certainly win. The biggest thing that I took away from that fight was in the exchanges was that Weili Zhang had the more firepower, and that when she landed on Joanna, it had a much bigger impact than when it was the other way around. Now that is something that can be altered with a game plan if Joanna was to use footwork and not plant her feet to stand for them trades. She might be able to manipulate her way to a victory with some footwork and a smart game plan. She's most certainly a legendary fighter as it stands already, and she's a hungry fighter till this day, despite the fact that she has won the world championship, defended it multiple times, fought for a world title in another weight class, and she's been around for so long, but she's still so motivated to be at the top of the game when it comes to this sport. And that means that Joanna Jędrzejczyk will forever be a threat to her championship reign, and I am very interested to see how Joanna moves on from this. Now, I don't assume the rematch will be next, as there's going to be other contenders in the wake, and especially with everything playing out in the world right now, who knows what could happen. But if she is the next fight and there is an instant rematch, who knows, this could be an incredible fight. By the way, sorry if there's sirens. As always, sirens are pretty regular in my video. This is South London. But with that said, I have Joanna Jędrzejczyk as one of the biggest threats to her.